Hey Rangers, welcome to Super Important Views. My name's Steve, and today we're going to talk about Shin Godzilla. You might notice that Arnez isn't here and I'm all by myself. That's because Arnez had a conflicting schedule, so we actually weren't able to go see the movie at the same time, and he hasn't gone and seen it. Might be for the better. So I'm going to trek along with the review of Shin Godzilla. You might know it also as Godzilla Resurgence, Shin Godzilla, or just New Godzilla in 2016. If you guys haven't seen the movie and don't want to be spoiled by this, because I am going to go full-blown into spoiler territory for this review, just to let you know, good movie. I enjoyed it thoroughly as a giant monster fan, but if you're more of a mainstream moviegoer, I would probably look more towards the 2014 release, because it's just more easily accessible for the giant monster genre than what was here with Shin Godzilla. Probably should say at the beginning, because some people might give me a hard time because of that little statement, but anyways, getting into the spoiler aspect, first I'm going to go over what I like about the movie, and then we'll get into the stuff that I didn't really care about for this. So, first and foremost, the plot. I actually really enjoyed it for the most part. At the beginning of the movie, you see a giant geyser explode from the water. They think it is something natural, maybe even slightly unnatural, but mostly man-made. And they have a meeting trying to discuss what it could be and how to deal with it. One person goes, might be a giant monster, because there might be some videos of some stuff. And everybody's like, this guy's serious? He thinks he's funny, huh? Which kind of makes sense. Who would think that there'd be a monster that could erupt the geyser and have water temperature over, like, I think they said 100 degrees Celsius, which is freaking insane. But lo and behold, giant tail erupts out of the water, and come to find out the guy was correct. And now they have to go into another meeting to discuss how to deal with the giant monster, and then another meeting. See where I'm going with this? Which is something that I actually really enjoyed from the plot, because it gives you a little bit of insight into how the Japanese government works. I'm not going to say it officially works because it's a movie, it's an interpretation. And to be honest, it's kind of comical at times, for at least the beginning portions of the film. Because you literally have them talking about how to deal with the monster, how they should walk the fine line, not get in trouble with the citizens, and yet this giant monster is just rampaging through the city the entire time. And then for the rest of the plot from here on out, you pretty much have the one guy trying to figure out a way to take out Godzilla, while most everyone else is just trying to do everything they can by normal means. And for the story too, it kind of falls into some of the same tropes as what we've seen with other movies, like Godzilla in 1984, Return of Godzilla, if you will, where they feel like they have to take out Godzilla with nukes later on in the movie, which kind of gets a little repetitive, and the Japanese government's trying to figure out a way of that not happening. Because, of course, you don't want a nuke detonating on Japan. Seems like bad PR, for the most part, especially for the Prime Minister, which they also bring up in the plot as well, which is freaking hilarious. Prime Minister's just like, I don't want to go down in history as the guy that signed off on this. Oh, my noodles are soggy. Sad day for me. And I really actually thought that it was pretty interesting for the most part. I see a lot of people complain about it because it is a lot of people just talking for the most part. But I just thought it was pretty cool because it kind of felt more realistic than what we would see with every other Godzilla movie when giant monsters hit. Because for the most part, you would think that it'd be one giant political nightmare if, even stateside, if Godzilla came on shore, say New York City, they're not going to just want to go and attack it with jets and tanks. They're going to want to give it time, try to figure out, try to evacuate the citizens, just like what they did in the Japanese film, even though they kind of portrayed it somewhat in a negative light in that aspect. But for me, that just kind of made sense. Because another scene too, I especially love when they're confronting Godzilla for the first time with military vehicles. They go to fire, and they don't, because there's two civilians running across the train tracks. And they stopped that little attack that might have actually been successful because of two civilians, which I can appreciate, lives matter. But for me, for the tone of the movie, it just felt a little silly for the way they were portraying it, because it's like, take out this giant monster that's wreaking havoc, killing citizens, and you had the chance to thwart him for the lives of two citizens. And they just ixnayed the whole thing, go back, and then Godzilla comes back even stronger than ever. Which, next thing I really enjoyed about the movie, Godzilla. Freaking amazing in this film. Overall, initially you guys might have seen like my top 10 Godzilla suits. He was an honorable mention because I like the design, but I have to see it in person and see how it works in the film to really be able to appreciate the suit. And I gotta say, I freaking loved it. Overall, the proportions don't bother me at all in the movie. Kind of makes sense with him gradually evolving, because how they explain it in the film is that he was part of the ecosystem underwater, a microorganism, if you will, and he comes into contact with nuclear waste that was dumped into the ocean. And eventually starts evolving, and he progresses so much that he is more evolved than humans. And he can even evolve in hours, not generations, hours. And I just thought that was a really cool take on him, because when you first see him, he's kind of adorable. He's just got like no little arms, just kind of waddling through the city, just knocking in and everything. My wife was freaking out next to me because she thought it was just the cutest thing ever. And I gotta say, I did too. And then they go through the little transformation. He goes upright because eventually when you're crouched there in buildings, you don't want to do that anymore. So he evolves to be able to avoid the buildings, if you will. And then after the first military conflict, he evolves again to be even larger, more intimidating, be able to withstand attacks. After they attack him, evolves again. And that beam. Oh, can we talk about that beam for a minute? Oh, so good. I freaking gotta say, it's probably my favorite beam in all Godzilla films now. It's official. 2014 was cool. I actually really like the Millennium Beam. I thought that one was really awesome, where he opens his mouth and it kind of discharges out. Well, this one, when you first see it, he gets bombed, he bends over, his mouth opens, it splits off kind of like Blade 2 fashion, which maybe we could have kept that out, but still works for me overall. Aims at the ground, and then you see plumes of, all I can say is smoke and flammable gases coming out of his mouth. And then you see the flames come out of his mouth, just normal flames, but they are literally gushing out of his mouth, igniting all the smoke, and literally laying waste to Tokyo. And then as he's firing the flames out of his mouth, they start heating up faster, starts focusing, and it becomes that beam that we kept seeing all over Facebook, where it's just a thin purple, literally just light, shooting out of his mouth, and he starts laying waste to bombers, buildings, and also kills a lot of the cabinet members, including the Prime Minister and the helicopter. And that scene was spectacular, especially when he like rears upright and just shooting straight into the sky. Awesome scenery right there. And then eventually he starts shooting out of his back, out of his flipping tail, and his tail mouth moves. I kind of get what they were going with it, but it was kind of funny because he's like, he needs to recharge, which I also thought was pretty cool because they tried to explain how he feeds without having to actually feed. Because usually in the old movies, he has to like come into contact with radiation, like say a reactor like 1984, absorbs the energy, or 2014, nuke goes off, he absorbs the energy that way. This one, it's all self-regulating, which kind of makes sense because even in the Showa films, you don't really ever see him like eat or need any nutrients. And in this film, they kind of try to explain it a little bit, which I really appreciate too. I gotta say, it probably, the suit-wise, now that I think about it, probably cracks my top 10 list now. It's not dethroning the big guy right here, not in the least. But he's still really cool though, and for the most part, I want to see what they do more with this kaiju, even though, end of the film, again, spoiler if you haven't seen it, he dies. But they kind of leave the little tidbit I'll talk about at the very end that might progress into another movie. And I love in this movie too that the military doesn't seem fully useless, or even just humans in general, because he's not conflicting with any other monsters in the movie. We are the protagonist, he is the antagonist. So we have to deal with him. At the beginning, weapons don't seem like they're effective, but once the US starts attacking him, we actually hurt him. I was kind of surprised. I didn't think we'd see Godzilla bleed. I wasn't expecting that. That was a lot of blood. It was just really impressive to see. And then Godzilla's like, oh, I actually have to deal with this. Okay. Freaking amazing. And in the end, when they try to use the blood when they try to freeze him, I can't say the word. They try to freeze him at the end of the film by shoving tubes into his mouth and knocking him over using skyscrapers. And then he kind of fights it off at the beginning. That's where you see the train sequence from the trailers. Also tries to topple over that way. Again, insert more into him, and that's how they inevitably defeat Godzilla. And gotta say again, very creative with the way that we were trying to take out Godzilla. It's not just, we dropped a nuke on him. Oh, we had to create some random giant thing to deal with him, or some mumbo jumbo. Like, it's again, seemed plausible. And I love the last scene in the movie. We'll talk about it later, but I'll just say right now, I love it. Because I want to save it for the end, because then we can have a little discussion in the comment section. Things I didn't like. For the most part, The subtitles were annoying. Like, I hear a lot of people complain about that, but I'm just going to bring it up again. It was annoying. Because sometimes they have kanji up top explaining the places that they were in. Every place. Even districts. Buildings. Rooms. A little excessive. Cool, because it kind of gives context to the place, but for the most part, kind of unnecessary, I feel. So you have that text, and then, stateside, we have subtitles in front of that, and then on the bottom, you have subtitles going for the guy talking, and then sometimes they speak in English or other languages, and then you got text on the bottom of the screen there as well. And it just makes for a lot of reading, which I don't mind. Going to a subtitle movie, I'm expected to use my eyes. But I kind of want to pay attention to what the actors are doing, and it's really hard to do that when I'm sitting there reading a bunch of text because they do talk pretty fast. So you read the text, get their facial expression, read the text, facial expression, read the text, something happened, read the text. It kept you going, but then again, it also keeps you kind of focused on the movie. Like, you have to be 100% focused on the movie. Popcorn wasn't really much of an option for me at the screening, which makes me super sad inside. Next, there isn't really any characters to really gravitate towards in this movie. Like, you have the... It's hard to even say because after coming out of this, I still don't really know what he was. Like, it kind of flashed the title on the screen once and I'm like, okay, cool, he's important. And if I can find an image, I'll put him here. But he was the only one that seemed like he knew what was going on. He's the one that the movie centers around the most, which still kind of just a talking head for the most part of the movie. And then you have her, who is the United States agent who wants to be president eventually. So she has a little bit of character buildup, but that's really about it. Most everybody else is just like generic cabinet member, politician, scientist. And some of them were cool. And there was enough like variety that you kind of understand what each person's role was in the movie. But there was just no one to really care about, which I feel hurts the replayability of the film a lot because another thing is, Godzilla isn't really in this movie all that much. Like, he makes appearances here and there, but it's not more than like what we've seen with the Kaijus in Godzilla 2014, the legendary one. And I feel it's pretty much the same here, but at least in that film you had some characters to kind of attach yourself to, like Bryan Cranston at the beginning, or some of us Ford towards the middle and later half of the movie. Yeah, I know, weird, right? Ford had more character development than some of these people in this movie. Oh, what a world we live in. And the plot really helped to outshine the characters in the movie. But then again, I guess if you think about it, the movie kind of is based around a group of individuals taking out Godzilla. Not one man. So it's nice to not have that one shining character in the movie, I guess. Because then it's not like, I defeated you, Godzilla. It's like, we as a nation defeated Godzilla. And then, just like I mentioned, would have liked to see Godzilla a little bit more, which I think would have helped with a lot of the talking scenes, because there's a lot of it. There's a lot of people just sitting in boardrooms. There's a lot of people sitting in underground bunkers. There's a lot of people just sitting around a desk talking the entire time. Which I explained already. I personally enjoyed it. I don't think most people will. Actually, I think a lot of mainstream movie audiences would. We as Godzilla fans really appreciate it because we're already interested in Japanese culture anyways, so the movie's very fun for us. But I can see my little brothers or most of my friends really not giving a damn about what is going on in the talk scenes. They want to see rampaging giant monster, which you do get, but I feel like if they would have like spread out more scenes of just Godzilla just through the city, I would even just enjoyed that, because even sometimes when you're seeing him, he's just standing there. Especially towards the later half of the movie. After he burns off all of his energy, he's just standing there with his tail up all the time, which I think is kind of adorable. It's kind of like my little pug, Tenchi. It's just his tail's always up and doing something. And I think they would use a little bit more like how they kind of conveyed at the beginning of the film, where they had the politicians talking, try to figure out how they're going to combat the giant monster and how to evacuate, going through all that stuff. Well, the monster's just destroying the city. And they sure keeps going back and forth to shots of like, oh, well, we need to move to the next room. Monster destroying the city. Hey, maybe we need to make a new policy for blah, blah, blah. Monster destroying the city. Hey, what are the citizens going to think about? Monster destroying the city. If they would have just like maybe kept doing that, especially when Godzilla was around actually being active, I think that would have helped to keep the attention a little bit more, and plus also helped a little bit with all the subtitles all the time. Which, that's really it for complaints. If I gotta say, I actually really recommend this movie to you guys, especially since most of you guys watch this huge giant monster fans, you will thoroughly enjoy this movie, I feel. But for most mainstream people, I feel like they're going to enjoy 2014 a little more. Like, I feel like that's just the more watchable Godzilla film than this one. And it's easily probably the most replayable. Well, this one, really awesome and has the better story by far. And even a more interesting story, if you will, because 2014 still Godzilla fighting another monster. We have to get them to meet, so plot happens. Well, this one shines a little bit of light into the Japanese government. It gives us a really creative Godzilla. Awesome camera work. Actually, that's something I forgot to mention. The camera work in this movie, probably some of my favorite I've seen in the Godzilla series, maybe even my favorite, because they have some really gorgeous shots of like up shots of Godzilla where it's like on a moving car, the back vintage shots of Godzilla walking through the city at night, freaking eerie as hell. The end sequence shot, gorgeous. You can definitely tell the director knew what he was doing. And also there was even like some shots that reminded me a lot of Evangelion, which I can really appreciate because I love Neon Genesis Evangelion. And especially when they were fighting Godzilla, you get some awesome shots. This was actually fully hitting Godzilla, like not flying off randomly into buildings and who knows where. Like, all of the weapons had a purpose and something to do, which is awesome. Although I kind of wish there was maybe a little bit more wanton destruction with the vehicles. Might have been cool. But still, I cannot get over those like panning tank shots where the tank's just like and Godzilla's off in the distance. Easily some of the best cinematography I've seen in movies as of recently. So again, I really love 2016, but I feel like once I get a hold of it, I'm probably going to watch it one more time, maybe when somebody else wants to check it out, and maybe here and there periodically. But I don't feel like I'm going to watch it nearly as much as, say, when Godzilla 2014 came out. But I feel even movies like Pacific Rim, I'm going to go back and probably watch that movie way more than I'm going to watch 2016. It'll be one of those I come back to periodically to revisit. Okay, so now we talk about that end scene, because I'm slightly confused. Because at the end, they show Godzilla's tail. Hold on a second. They show Godzilla's tail. It's like a panning shot. And then at the end, you see these little humanoid Godzillas kind of starting to come out at the end of the tail. And it's creepy, scary, and awesome all at the same time. Now, I don't know exactly what was going on there. I kind of assume what I'm grabbing at is it was probably Godzilla's next evolution, because him being large, they're starting to deal with him and using tactics to deal with the one Godzilla. Why not have more? The only thing is I'm confused if they were going to be human-ish Godzillas, or if they were just going to evolve, again I use that word a lot for this, into more Godzillas, but maybe a little bit more humanoid in appearance. And also I kind of feel like that was maybe a little bit play on the suit actor too, ish. Because there's always a human inside of Godzilla, so it kind of makes sense that human-ish Godzillas would be coming out of his tail. Because the other thing too that initially popped in my head was maybe he was actually like absorbing, trying to recharge. But that doesn't make sense for the movie anymore, because I remember I mentioned that in a review, because that's how it seemed like it was going to happen to me. So I've thrown that little idea out the window. And I'd like to know your guys' thoughts in the comment section below, because it's odd, cool, but odd. Still think it's probably just his next evolution of what he was going towards. I'm pretty sure they're dead. Pretty sure. They look dead. They look statuified. I think that's a word. But I don't think that they were going to be moving anymore after what happened to Godzilla. It seemed like something that was probably happening, which makes me want to go back and watch to see if there was any indication in that final fight that there was something going on at the end of his tail than what we just saw at the final scene. It actually gets me a lot more excited to go back and rewatch Shin Godzilla. So what do you guys think of Shin Godzilla? If you checked it out, please let me know in the comment section below, and help us defeat those kaijus by hitting that like button, subscribe, become a ranger today. See you guys in the next video. Bye bye.